Hey Josh, how are you? Having a good weekend so far? Been up to anything interesting? Hey Boris, how are you both doing? The small little sound blast, I'll be showing you that very soon. We'll wait till a few more people get on. And it's once again one of those that I need to decide whether I'm going to sell it or not. This one I had originally made for myself, but we shall see. In a way, it's come out too good to keep them for myself. It just seems senseless not to let a customer have it. That's the bottom line. That's how I feel about it. But at the same time, I just seem to let all the good pipes go, the ones that I really want to smoke myself. But I suppose as a pipe maker, I've got to learn to let go of pipes. And I think I can allow myself to call myself a pipe maker these days. I'm making pipes, so I suppose that's in the true description of the word. That's what it is. Hey Boss Hog. Hey Tim. Actually, Tim, I completely forgot. I was watching Dale Piper's video, and I just completely forgot. I should have really sent you back that tin of 3 Nonnas, mould and all, but it's yours. I should have sent it back to you. It's been sitting on my desk here. I really should have sent it back to you, so I'll have to do that. Unless you want me to bin it. That's up to you. Hey Mike, how you doing? Cheers. So tonight, a few things I want to do. One is I've got to show you a pipe. That sounds like you've got a plan there, 780 Mike. That sounds good. Well, I've got a large coffee, and I want to do a first impressions of this tin, this mystery tin. Well, it's not a mystery tin, I know what the tin is, but the benefactor is a mystery. This Mac Baren Vanilla Cream, large 100-gram tin. And it's from July 18. So 2 years. I'm assuming that this is... actually, let me get tobacco reviews on. I'm assuming it's mainly... I imagine it's a Virginia Cavendish Burley type thing. But I've been wanting to try a nice warm feeling vanilla blend, and that is one that people have mentioned. Vanilla cream. Black Cavendish and Virginia. So the description is a flake tobacco. Ooh, it's flake? Oh, this is loose cut, so it's not the flake. A flake tobacco of select matured Virginia and mild black Cavendish tobaccos rounded off with an aromatic vanilla flavour. This combination gives an unusual blend with a pleasing sweetness and a special taste. Now named Classic Flake. Well, Jim Inks gives it a 3 out of 4, and Pipe Stud gives it a 3 out of 4. It's not too bad for an aromatic. Midsummer Weekend. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I would probably prefer the flake version, but we're certainly going to give this one a try. McBaron Cube. I think I've once had that many moons ago, and let's say in the past I wasn't a big aromatic smoker, and I don't consider myself a big aromatic smoker now. Well, I'm a big, aromatic smoker, but I'm not a big aromatic smoker. It's actually a little bit showing a bit of age there on the paper. Hey Daniel, how you doing? it's I would see the first sort of contact with the aroma. I wouldn't call it a really heavy vanilla. To me, it's more of a fruity vanilla. But in actual fact, there's a little bit of rust around the rim. I don't know if you can see it there. So I hope that's all okay. The paper hopefully has protected it. It looks like it has. This crimped paper just makes it a little bit more special. I always feel it's a shame when some of the newer tobaccos don't bother with it. Always a good sign when there's some tobacco stuck to the paper. The aroma now in this room is so classic pipe club aroma. You know, when you go into a pipe club and sit with other people and you immediately get this really nice sweet aroma, which is usually just a cacophony of different flavors from lots of different people smoking different tobaccos. But you just have this really nice sweet aroma in the room. That's what this smells like. So to me, it's a mixture of fruit and vanilla. It's got a really classic McBarony type aroma to it as well. I have to say that the tobacco looks really good quality. So it's Virginia's and Cavendish, Black Cavendish. And because it has got a couple of years, then hopefully the Virginias will also be improved somewhat. You don't necessarily want age on an aromatic, but at least the Virginia's here. And it's being 2 years old. It's not too old. I'm going to leave that there so you can see it, because it's a great looking tobacco. I could imagine, I mean, if I end up liking it, I could imagine it's a type of tobacco which you could always just enjoy if you don't know what else to smoke, because it's got a nice sweet flavour, and I have a bit of a sweet tooth. So I could see that working for me as a good fail-safe. Oh, that's not good, Daniel. You got to look after him. Make sure that he doesn't go wandering around on the balcony. Hey, Tony. Right, so which pipe? I don't know if you guys remember the saga with this pipe. This is a Paul's pipe, Paul Menard pipe. Sent it off to a buyer, an eBay purchaser, and he never received it. It took me about 6 months to get it back. Eventually got it back with this damage on it, and luckily it was tracked and signed for, so I could make some kind of claim, and we'll see if I get anywhere with it. Worst comes to worst, I'll have to restain it myself. There's a few scratches on it here and there, but I may well just restain it myself and then sell it. Unfortunately, I can't convert it, otherwise I would, because he's got a Teflon tenon and mortise, which is good because you can break this pipe down when it's hot, and it won't expand and contract, but it does mean that I can't convert it, which is a shame. It's almost ready for smoking. There's not a lot of moisture in here, which is really good considering it's an aromatic. So another minute or two and this will be ready to go. I haven't had a pipe today, so this will be my first one. And I just need to think about which pipe I want to smoke. I think I might go for the Escorti. Well, I'm not going to go with the Radice dyno because I'm still kind of in the process of breaking that in. I'm still not getting the best out of that pipe, and if I want to have a first impressions of a tobacco, I want to really be able to rely on the pipe. Hey, Rocking Steady, that's some title you're giving me there. Shouldn't it be a capital G? Alright, I'm actually really quite excited. Yeah, good sir, exactly. I'm very well, Rocking Steady, how are you? You can see that there's sort of bits of flake amongst this, the Virginias, which is a good sign for me, really good sign. I wonder how they decide what they use for ribbon and broken up as opposed to flakes. I assume when they do this stuff, most of it looks like anyway with Mac Baren, most of it has been a flake at some point. So for them to break it up from being a flake, you know, if I was cynical, I would say there's a reason for it, but otherwise I would say that's just the quality of their stuff. And I think Mac Baren really, so far, the tobaccos that I've had from Mac Baren have all been really excellent quality tobacco, even if I didn't like the flavour of it, but the quality of the tobacco has been excellent. Rocking Steady, I feel your pain. I purchased this printer during lockdown for my kids because they needed to print out schoolwork. And it's a Wi-Fi printer so that they could print it straight from their phones, whatever they need. And it's been a nightmare, I have to be honest. I'm pretty good with technology, but this one is really not great. But in the end I did it from, there's an app which comes with it, I just did it all from an app. And that made it much easier. Alright, here goes. First try of vanilla cream. Daniel, in terms of shag and cube cut, I don't have a huge amount of experience with either. Probably more with shag than with cube, but even shag I don't have that much experience with. I tend to stick to flakes and just general mixtures. I don't know what you call it, I forget what you call the sort of, where are we? What would you call this kind of cut? Just the general bits and pieces kind of cut. This is northwards. No, I wouldn't call this a ribbon personally, but it's called loose cut, but I don't know what the official title is. I think ribbon is a much more long, stringy affair. Ribbony. Hey, Chad. The problem with technology is that sometimes you can spend a fortune on a printer, a decent printer, and in the past I've bought professional level printers for my photography. Hello, Piper Rick. And it's just a waste of money because it just never lasts. You could spend on a professional inkjet printer to be printing large format prints. You could spend anything from 3 to 10, 15,000 pounds, no problem. And because they're all plasticky and made of rubbish, they don't last. And you could take out a contract for a year or two, but you'll find invariably that as soon as your contract runs out, the darn thing breaks down. Hey, Glenn. I had a Canon or Epson, I don't remember, large format printer. Not huge, but it cost a lot of money. For me, it was a lot of money. It was less than £1,000, but still, it was a lot of money in those days. And something went wrong with it. And just to look at it, they wanted like £100 just to look at it before they did any kind of repair. And it ended up sitting in my garage for a while, and then eventually I just dumped it. And it's very, very frustrating. And now I've got a Canon printer, a smaller A4 printer, but also approaching professional level. I've had it a couple of years, and hey presto, error. There's an error function on it, an error message. I've looked it up online. I managed to override it a couple of times, but then it said no more. So it's another, couple of £100 down the drain. So this one here, it's black and white. It's laser as opposed to inkjet. I find lasers tend to last longer. It just means I don't have color printing. And when I'm doing printing nowadays, I don't do any large format prints anyway. If I do, I send them. I get them done online. Tonight I'm having my first attempt of Mac Baren Vanilla Cream, and it's actually very, very nice. Hey, Glenn. I don't work on Saturday, as I've mentioned before. It's my Sabbath, so I don't do any physical any kind of work. Hey, Jimmy. But after the Sabbath finished, I finished a pipe. So you may have seen that sort of small, stocky little apple that I made and had sandblasted. Well, tonight I just stained it, shellacked it, and bent the stem. So it's pretty much ready to go. I'm going to show it to you very soon. I think it's pretty much dry already. Yeah, it's dry. So in fact, I can show that to you now. This tobacco is great. If it stays anything like this throughout the bowl, I'll have a new tobacco. It's the first vanilla blend that I've tasted that gives you that promised warmth that vanilla can offer. And I'm really, really enjoying it. I think I'm becoming an old codger. Wouldn't have believed that I'd be so into aromatics. Hey, Grubnub, how you doing? All right, so here's the pipe. Lovely ring grain. Nice stem. Hey Jack. And this one I followed through the shape on the stem as well. And I've stained it in a way so that the grain should still pop through. And you can see this sort of flame grain shooting out there from the base. Hey tree. It wasn't you who sent me this tobacco, was it? I think it was John Walker. I think the writing looks familiar. He's got quite a cursive handwriting style, which just looks familiar. It's got a good drill. Drill's in the right spot. It's got a good bit of meat underneath the drill as well. Should be a good smoker. It's got nice proportions. And a really good sandblast. There's no date on the tin because the tin itself has a date. So maybe he didn't put it on. It's not actually in the sale because I only finished it tonight, Josh. And originally, this pipe I actually set out making for myself. But it's come out so well, it's a shame not to let somebody else enjoy it. I'd feel guilty not putting this, out there for sale. It's just come out fantastic. Really, really delighted with it. Great shaping, great sandblasting, nice proportions. It just worked out. I'm just delighted with it. I had a half a mind to stain it black. I don't think I've done. I haven't done. No, I haven't, because this is only the second pipe. I was really tempted to stain it black and then shellac it to get a really nice shiny black finish. But when I was looking at it in its naked form, I could see these sort of streamers coming out of the base, these straight grain streamers going across this ring grain, and I just thought that it's a shame not to make something of it. And you can actually see them. I stained it with a very, very light stain. So that it allows some of that to show through, and as it dries more it'll probably show through a little bit more. Yeah, you can see it there quite well. So what's been going on in the world over the weekend, over Saturday? Any news items which I haven't heard? I did hear that there was some terrorist, well, they're calling it terrorist here. 3 people were killed somewhere in Reading. Cheers, Rick. Yes, I have, Daniel. Just doing a completely naked briar. But I find that, I mean, I could do that if somebody particularly wanted it. Because I think that a lot of them get dirty before they get the patina. And I just don't like the way that looks. But if somebody particularly wanted it, and I could more than happy to do that. Sorry I miss your live, Chad. I miss it every week. I just can't do Friday nights, as you know. I always missed matches on Friday night as well. And when you're sort of catching up, it's not the same. It's just not the same. A live video is there to be interactive. That's the whole raison d'etre of it. And if you can't interact, it's kind of not the same. I do sometimes just flick through them. You know, I'll listen to a few snippets all the way through the video just to see if there's something that I want to leave a message about. But I'd much rather be interacting. Oh yeah, for sure, Chad. No problem. Whenever you're ready. I thought your first one, Chad, was superb. You had a great subject. Interesting person. Has led an interesting life. Diverse. And he was very communicative, and he was like natural. I thought it was a great start. Hey Andrew, how you doing? Nice, that should be interesting. I wonder who's going to moderate that. This tobacco's really good. So I'm smoking for the first time this vanilla cream, which somebody sent to me. That somebody, I suspect, was John Walker. And it's really good. This is the loose cut version, as opposed to the flake. Apparently there's a flake version. And it's really, I have to say that I'm very, very impressed. It's got a nice, it's not too sweet. I think Josh said it's really sweet, but it is sweet, but I don't think it's overly sweet. And through the retrohale you get a lovely little spicy retrohale, tobacco-y spicy retrohale, so you don't lose out on the tobacco. But it certainly is an aromatic. It's not like Orlik Golden Slice or something like that. Versus Blood Red Moon. This is McBaron Vanilla Cream, so it's a vanilla blend, and it's really, I think it's expertly made. I'll have to do another video of it. I'm very, very impressed with it so far, although it's still early in the bowl. But I definitely seem to be getting the taste for aromatics or more flavorful smokes, hence going back to Northwoods a little bit as well now. Storming in the US. Hey Todd. Well, this coming week we're supposed to be having a heat wave. So compared to Cult Blood Red Moon, well, Blood Red Moon is an aromatic. It's a proper aromatic. It is fairly goopy. It's not as bad as your typical sort of high street cherry blend of old, but it certainly is quite sticky. But I actually like it. It's a really nice sort of cherry chocolate kind of flavor. And I've said many times, to me the flavor is like morel cherries. You know, you get the cherries in a jar with the juice, and it has a little bit of a sweet acidic tartness to it. And to me that's what Cult Blood Red Moon tastes like. That was maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I smoked it a fair bit. 5 years ago now, nearly. I think now I probably would say it's a little bit too artificial, a little bit too aromatic-y for me. I still enjoy it from time to time. I do like the flavor. But even now, when I'm enjoying aromatics more than I ever have, well, that's not true. I enjoyed them right at the beginning because that's all I smoked. But once I got beyond that and my palate matured a little bit, I definitely would say that they're a little bit too aromatic. That particular blend is a little bit more aromatic than I would like. But if I was going to compare it to another high street goopy style cherry blend, I would certainly prefer the BRM. That sounds intriguing, Andrew. I think you mentioned it recently as well. Hey Jeffrey, how you doing? High quality for an aromatic, okay. Well, as I've always said, the real aromatics are the Oriental blends and the Latakia blends. Those were the original aromatic tobaccos before flavorings were used. All well here, Jeffrey, thank you. Sorry, Daniel, I don't understand what you're asking. Do I have to go to aromatic when smoke them? What does that mean? Sutlifs. Well, some of them I have. Art from Artie's Place sent me a pound bag of Sutlif 515 something RC, something like that. I can't remember the full name, but basically it's a match for Virginia Woods apparently. I have tried it. I haven't opened the pound bag, but I've got a smaller jar of it, and it's fairly close. What's that, Chad? A 45-minute edit of what? Oh, right, Daniel. Okay, so originally, before, I suppose probably going back quite some time, originally, tobacco was probably pretty much just Virginia tobacco that people smoked in their pipes. And then more exotic tobaccos were discovered, like Latakia and Turkish sort of Oriental type tobaccos, which have a specific, distinct flavor. So when they originally discovered those and started to add that to tobaccos, those were called aromatic tobaccos because they had an aroma. They had a specific aroma to them, so they were called aromatic tobaccos. Later on, when people started using food flavorings like cherry, chocolate, coffee, they started to add actual flavorings to the tobaccos, food type flavorings. Those were called aromatics, and the Orientals were simply called Orientals, or vapors, which is Virginias and Periques. The Periques were also considered originally as an aromatic, but nowadays they're considered as a niche, as a genre on their own. And aromatics are usually referred to, they usually mean the ones with artificial flavoring. It doesn't have to be artificial, but artificially flavored. But the flavoring could be proper fruit juices or whatever, but added flavorings. So when you say you lost it, Chad, it's corrupted or you've literally lost it? So casings and toppings. So most tobaccos, even pure Virginias. There you go, Daniel. Exactly. Most, probably, the vast majority of tobaccos, probably maybe even all tobaccos, have some casing or other. So you'll have mostly a sugared water. Most tobaccos will have at least a sugared water added to them just to make them palatable. So even a pure Virginia that you might smoke, which doesn't taste that sweet to you, it would probably taste a lot more savory or even bitter if it didn't have that sugared water added. So that's your casing. The topping is what it sounds like. It's topped, it's added, it's an additional flavoring. Oh, so I assume you hadn't saved the file there, Chad, as you were working on it, and your software didn't have a backup saved as it's worked on it. Most softwares, they have something in the background saving in case it crashes in the middle or something. You get that even with a Word document. If it crashes in the middle, you'll have at least something of it that it's saved. You can usually set that in the settings, how often it should save and how many copies it should save. Don't be sorry for the questions. Never be sorry. A crossover is where you've got, for instance, to give you an example, Northwoods is what is now classically known as an English blend, which has also had a change in terminology. English blends used to be just English style blends. In other words, the process of creating a blended tobacco was done in the English method, which was not to add anything artificial. So if you had, for instance, a classic Balkan blend, which has Virginia, maybe a bit of Cavendish to carry some of the sugar, possibly, some Perique, and some Orientals, maybe a bit of Burley, kitchen sink type blends, but with no added flavorings, you would call that an English blend, Latakia. But that term has changed, and now, generally, when people talk about English blends, they're talking about blends with Latakia in it. They may have other tobaccos in there as well, but generally with Latakia forward blends. So some people interchange the term of Balkan blend and English blend. But I suppose people who talk about English blends nowadays, they're talking about mainly Latakia blends. But originally, English blends were blends which were made without artificial flavoring, no matter which tobaccos were being used. Power Director, I've never used Power Director, I can't comment, I'm afraid. But Josh might. Yeah, I must be honest, editing is it was the phone, that's a shame. Editing is can be very, very frustrating. I used to, in the early days, I used to edit every single video. It's the days before I got to know about the iPhone iMovie app. And now it's an absolute godsend. You guys remember the whole rigmarole I went through with trying different phones, and especially the Android phones, because you could pause a video in the middle of recording. And because especially during my drives, or if I'm doing a cigar video or a tobacco video, I wouldn't have the video going the whole time. So I wanted something to be able to just pause and then carry on later on. But invariably, as soon as you hit the home button, that pause is lost and you have to make a new clip, so you still have to string it together. So in the end, when I discovered iMovie, that was it. There's no going back for me. It's so easy to put together clips, and it renders it really, really fast. And the app also has quite a lot of options. I could make it more fancy, I'm just not interested. I would imagine that the room note of this tobacco would be great as well. So this is a real winner, this tobacco, so far. Well, iMovie is my choice, because it's free, I suppose, as well, but more because it's so simple to use. And I'm a simpleton. Hey, North Country. Absolutely, Chad, I know that feeling. It's the same kind of feeling as having a gorgeous ring grain on a pipe and having that on the other side. It's deflating, frustrating. Sent this off to him to get this sandblasted, and when I looked at the pipe before I sent it, it looked a little bit unbalanced on this side, so I sanded it more, and it looked fine. But I didn't realise that I'd sanded it so thin, and maybe well be that was the reason why I hadn't done it so thin in the beginning. But what can you do? Easy draw. Silver lining to every cloud, Chad, right? Easy clean. Thanks, guys. See, these are the pipes that I end up with myself. I end up fixing them and smoking them. That's exactly what I did with this pipe. You guys remember what I did with this one? And I don't see why I shouldn't be able to do it with that. In reality, it's probably not worth messing around with, but I do enjoy saving stuff from oblivion. There's not that much to work with here, I have to be honest, but I think what I might well do is patch it in, glue in a patch, maybe make the hole bigger, glue in a patch and rusticate it to, maybe I might even do it with a Dremel to try and match the ring grain, and then I'll just have to dye it black completely, and then I'll end up smoking it myself, I guess. Shame. Nice looking pipe. It was a little bit off here, so things weren't as central as they should have been, but I don't remember, did I do a video of fixing this pipe up at the time? Do any of you remember seeing a video? I mean, this one really worked out very, very well. I mean, you wouldn't know it, but there's a penny-sized fill in there. Very sweet idea, but I don't think there's anywhere to fix a stem to on that. Well, I suppose I could glue a shank onto it. Well, maybe I'll do a video on this one. But this one is going to definitely be more of a challenge. Because what I'd need to do here is basically get a fairly uniform hole and have the actual thickness of the wall chamfered inwards, so that whatever blank I put in there can sit on it, and then I can glue it, let it go off, and then sand it, and then rusticate it, and then fill the sides with briar dust with the glue, and that works. But it's just a little bit more challenging because that one was on the base. Here it's on the side. I've got to make sure that this doesn't go awry inside, so I've got to have something in there which stops. Well, I can't really do that either because the super glue will stick to it, so I might just have to wing it and then sand it internally afterwards. The problem that I've always got is that I'm always worried about the glue heating up when, so I had the same problem with this one, is I didn't want any glue on the inside surface, so that there shouldn't ever be a possibility of smoking glue, essentially, of the ember coming in contact with the glue. So I did the same thing here. I made a is it convex hole, so that the walls were all sort of chamfered inwards, and I basically glued the thing on and filled it, sanded it, rusticated it, and stained it, and that's fine. On the inside, the idea was that the hole, I made it as round and as perfectly round as possible, and I made the insert as round as possible, so that when it was put in, it actually wedged in. Obviously, it had to be glued, but it was wedged in tight, so there were really not much gap on the inside, if that makes any sense. And then I put in a thick ball coating, and I've smoked it plenty of times, and it's fine. Yeah, I might do that someday. We'll see. I tend to prefer to spend my time making pipes, but it's an interesting project, and as I say, I don't like pipes going to waste. Well, I have some tobacco tins which are left on my desk. I'm only leaving it open so you guys can see the tobacco. The lid would be on it otherwise, but if it's a tobacco which I feel that I'm going to smoke regularly, I'll often leave the tin out without it going into a sealed container. But this is a 100-gram tin, so I probably will jar it up. But I do feel it's a tobacco that I'll be smoking quite regularly. But you know how it is, you have so many tobaccos open, it's sometimes hard to have a regular rotation unless you're somebody like Chad, who smokes 2 or 3 tobaccos all the time. There you go, Chad. I read your mind. Your tobaccos don't last long enough. Let's get a show of hands, everybody. Whoever's watching and prepared to take part in this little survey. Scary place, your mind. Tell me on average how many bowls you have each day. Doesn't have to be perfect science, just a rough guess. How many bowls would you say you have each day? One a week, North Country. Yet your handle has a pipe smoker in it. Well, good for you. I hope that's a really enjoyable smoke for you. 3.542, isn't that pie? 4 to 6, Andrew 2, Tom 2 to 3 a day, 1 for Pipe Rick, 3 to 5 for Boris, 2 to 5 for Tim. Saturday night special for North Country Fisher. JBN 951, I wish you well. Sorry to hear that. And welcome. Thank you for joining. I hope the prognosis is good. 5 for Tree. Well, 5 has it, I think, in the lead at the moment. A confident 5. Pictures and More has 20,000. Well, I've been a big proponent of saying that I smoke half bowls, and I still do a lot of the time, but increasingly I do find that I do a very, very loose pack of a full pipe, but when tapped it goes down to about half. So I'm still having around half a bowl at a time. And I would say I'm averaging around 2 bowls a day, 2 half bowls a day, believe it or not. Despite all my social media output, because when I get home, I invariably head into the garage, and I don't smoke much in the garage. Not because I don't want to; it's just because I'm working. Some days none, Chad. How do you manage that? Well, the loose pack, I've come to do that because I smoke filtered pipes. You just adjust the pack to compensate for that filter being there. Even though I've never really had a major issue with the draw. So when you tamp accordingly. Every so often I'll end up with a pack which doesn't work out, and the smoke is just not enjoyable. But generally speaking, it works for me. The original reason why I started half bowls was because I found always that the second half of not always, but nearly all tobaccos, the second half of the bowl is never as good as the first. And that, Daniel, actually is a comment which has bearing on what you were talking about earlier. And that's because the casing, and if it's aromatic, the topping evaporates from the heat. So you get the most flavour in the first half of a bowl. So I tended to just have smaller amounts of tobacco more often. And that also gives me the ability to flit around with different tobaccos. Daniel's asked a question about the same question in terms of cigars. Yeah, North Country, me too. It's you've heard me say it many times. Hey Mark, how you doing? I'm smoking less cigars probably than I ever have. I'm probably smoking maybe 2 a week, maybe something like that. It comes in sort of ups and downs. Sometimes I'll smoke a cigar a day. I don't remember the last time I smoked more than 1 cigar in a day, whereas before I smoked 9mm pipes, I was smoking 2 to 3 cigars a day. Since I went back to pipes after moving to 9mm, as I say, I don't remember ever having more than 1 in a day, and now many days I don't have a cigar at all. I'm a good ways down the bowl. The flavour is still there. If anything, the fruitiness of the flavour is intensified a little bit. Well, if any of you guys like aromatic tobacco, or if you don't generally go for aromatic tobacco, but you want something with a bit of flavour which doesn't come across too goopy, I definitely recommend this. Obviously, I've got to smoke it in different pipes and different environments and so on, but on a first impression, excellent tobacco. Really first class. Are you inhaling? I think we've had this question before, North Country. We've had this discussion a while back. You don't inhale, do you? Well, Andrew, my first contact with Mac Baren was when I first picked up the pipe. I probably... well, North Country, what you might do is, just adding to what Josh was saying, is stick the cigar in a pipe. I've done that many times when it comes towards the end of the cigar. It gets too hot to hold. I stick it in a pipe and finish it that way. without a filter, and that works fine for me. But if you're finding that the cigars are bothering you, stick them in a pipe with a filter, see how that goes. Hey Clay, how you doing? Doing well, doing well. Yeah, so Andrew, my first contact with Mac Baren was Scottish mixture, and that was before I was smoking. Well before I looked at a 9mm filter pipe, even though I had filtered pipes, but without realizing what they were. And I tried the Scottish mixture, and it bit me so bad. From then onwards, I called every Mac Baren blend a McBite, because I was trying lots of different blends. I couldn't cope with them. The bite was immediate, literally immediate, with any Mac Baren blend, virtually. So I just stayed away from Mac Baren, and to me they were always just a horrible bitey experience. And then come in with 9mm, and as you know, it changed my smoking completely. I could smoke every single tobacco, and it was just a complete 360 degrees turnaround for me. So I should really try that Scottish mixture again. A lot of the tobaccos that I've tried, which have not been, they're under different labels, but they're made by Mac Baren. They've got that very similar kind of quality to them, and one of those is the Virginia by oh, my head's gone. You know the yellow pouch. I think that's a great tobacco. It's a cheap over-the-counter tobacco, so to speak. It's not really over-the-counter, but it's cheap. Amphora, thank you. Amphora Virginia. I think that's a great tobacco. I would say it's probably cased quite heavily with sugared water, but it's really nice. If ever there was an under-the-radar tobacco, I would say Amphora Virginia is one of those. No, I haven't tried plum cake, although I do have a very aged pouch of the stuff somewhere. This is a really old pouch of Mac Baren Dark Twist, and the pouch of plum cake I've got is from the same era. Probably 1970s, something like that. Yes, still alive, thank God. Well, I use tapadors all the time. Then you've got a couple there, and any of the open tins which aren't getting smoked regularly, they end up in a tapador. I've got about 4 tapadors around the room here, and anything sealed is just in regular storage containers. So how are you commenting if you can't see it? Oh, you can't do it on your PC, you mean? You can only do it on your mobile, right? You sure your internet is okay on the computer? Careless Whisper, love that song. I think he really demonstrates the virtuosity of his voice in that song. George Michael. Yeah, mason jars are great. Best way to go. The pipe with a hole. was just talking about it before. I might just try and repair it and smoke it myself. I have done similar repairs before on the base of pipes, which worked out very well. They all have holes, absolutely, as do we. But I will try to remember to do a video of it when I do it. But this is today's pipe that I finished off today. So I've given it a very, very light stain and a shellac coating, and it just turned out awesome. The number one issue that smokers experience when getting into pipes, I would say, has to be packing the pipe. It's got to be. Hey Mike, how you doing? I'm sorry I still haven't sent your tins off. I apologise. I haven't been to the post office in yonks, and I've got a stack, literally a stack of stuff that I need to take to the post office. So I've got to get that done this week. I've probably got about 15 pipes I've got to send off. Father's Day, is that today? Daniel buying too many pipes? Nope, hasn't bought one yet, although we are talking about one. Three or four times a bowl, Daniel, is absolutely fine. I think you're doing fantastically well if it's just 3 or 4 times. No, I haven't sanded 150 yet. No, I haven't really been in the shop much in the last 2 or 3 days. I was in there tonight literally for 15-20 minutes, just finishing off this one here, just bending the stem and staining it and shellacking, but that was it. Thursday I didn't go in the garage at all. Friday I didn't do anything in the garage. Today I didn't do anything in the garage. So yeah, got some catching up to do. Pipe 74. Yeah, that is a nice pipe. I'm surprised it hasn't gone. It's got a lot going on. It's very much an artisan's pipe. Yeah, that shellac is just a regular liquid shellac, which I bought online, made by a UK company. Well, the idea of relighting a tobacco could be so many reasons why you're having to relight it, Daniel. For a start, you want to make sure the humidity is right. If it's too wet, if it's too damp, you're going to be forever relighting it. You're going to overheat the tobacco. It's not going to taste nice. If it's too dry, it's going to burn too hot. So you just need to get used to finding the right level of humidity. And I find that it's the right level for me is just before it gets too crispy. So there's still a little bit of bounce in it, and a good way of testing it is if you've got some tobacco, you clump it together. When you let go, it slowly springs back. If it stays there and doesn't spring back, it's too wet, it's clumping together. If it doesn't clump at all together and it just breaks in you as you do that, then it's too dry. So you need somewhere in between, and you find your own way. You find what works best for you. Hey, Paul. But over time, you'll feel it in your hands. Just holding it like this, you'll be able to feel that coldness, that humidity, that little bit of dampness in there, and you'll just get used to it. And how you pack the pipe is also going to make a big difference. If you pack it too tight, it's just not going to stay alight. The oxygen is not getting to it. But if you're lighting a pipe 3 or 4 times for a whole bowl, I think you're doing great. I light my pipe many more times than that. Just don't worry about it. It's all part of pipe smoking. It will depend on what you're doing. So now when I'm talking a lot of the time, obviously I need to relight it. But if you're really focusing and doing nothing else but smoking the pipe, then yes. But for me, it's not even a challenge. I don't even think about it. So what if I have to relight a pipe? It's not the end of the world. It's only when you're having to relight it because there's a problem, whether it's the pack or the humidity or something like that, then that's a problem. But if that's not the issue, and just you're enjoying yourself, and maybe you don't smoke it for a couple of minutes and you have to relight it, so what? Tony513, how you doing? Thanks for joining. That sounds fine, Daniel. I wouldn't worry about it. Wouldn't worry about it at all. Still a little bit of baccy left in there. We'll finish it off. Derek, how you doing? Thanks for joining. How's Northern Ireland tonight? One thing which I've learnt is that there's no fixed way that you should be smoking a pipe. You need to smoke the pipe the way you enjoy it. As soon as you start to put airs and graces on, and if people say to you, you must do it this way, you must do it that way, that's it. You've lost the whole concept of pipe smoking. Pipe smoking is to be a relaxing experience. And whatever it means for you, whether it's the ritual of the preparation, whether it's the taste of the smoke, whether it's the enjoying the pipe itself, how the pipe looks, all of those things, every person will have different degrees of enjoyment and different parts of the hobby. But the main thing is you have to enjoy it. If you start to get stressed at certain parts of it because you don't feel you're doing it like the next person, or because you see some guy online smoking a pipe a certain way and you think that's the way it should be done and you can't do that, then you're missing the whole point. You need to smoke it and just enjoy yourself. Forget about any so-called normalities and just enjoy it. That sounds ideal, Daniel. Another thing, Daniel, which you might want to check, is just if you're having it as a regular problem, you might want to just check the draft hole and make sure it's not too thin. If it's too thin, too narrow, sometimes it's worth putting a drill bit through it and just widening it a little bit. I have seen that with quite a few of my pipes that I've had in my collection. That's a topic we've spoken about before in terms of bent pipes or long stemmed pipes, a long shank and stem. I personally haven't seen that, for instance, church wardens smoking that much cooler. Maybe a fraction, but if you've got a difficulty, for instance, with tongue bite, I originally thought that I'll give it a go, and I bought a couple of church wardens at the time. It didn't really help. It maybe helps a little bit, but it didn't really help enough to solve my problem. What I will say though is that really short, stubby pipes, the smoke sort of hits you that little bit quicker. Sometimes the smoke can feel warm, but other than that, I don't see a big difference. I don't see a big difference with reverse calabash pipes either. Some people say that they do make a difference. I personally haven't experienced that. Actually, Paul, I was thinking about you the other day. I was going through all my pipes when I did that video, and I was looking for that horn-shaped pipe that we were talking about, and I couldn't find it, and I still haven't found it. I've got a feeling it's in the garage somewhere. Church wardens are a nice experience, but I wouldn't lose any sleep over it personally. I'm not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't enjoy, but if you think it's going to revolutionize your smoking experience, I don't know. They're not the most practical pipes, unless you're sitting relaxing in your armchair. North Country, I haven't seen Hector at all. I haven't seen him on YouTube at all for a long time. Have you seen him on any other channels? Tonight I'm having my first smoke, Tony, of McBaron Vanilla Cream, and it's great. I'm coming to the last dottle. Dottle can get, who was it said something about dottle? When you get towards the end of the pipe, it definitely can get, a bit wet, because it's just a collection of everything that's at the bottom of the pipe. I don't usually smoke the last bit. Occasionally I have a little surprise and I find that I've finished it and there's nothing left. That happens sometimes, and that's usually a dream smoke. Sad, Chad? Sad as in unhappy, or sad as in a different meaning of sad? How's the flake version, Tree? Well, if it's anything like this, it's really good. I'm very happy with this. I remember when I first started smoking Erinmore, the first contact that I had with Erinmore was an aged tin that I got from who did I get that from? From Danny Shaw, the late Danny Shaw. We must be coming up to a year since his passing. and he sent me an aged, I think it was from 2008. This tobacco, Paul, is McBaron Vanilla Cream, loose cut. Right, okay, I got you, Chad. Less said, and all that. What was I saying? Yeah, so Erinmore, I got the mixture at first. It was a 2008 tin, which I got from Danny Shaw. And I absolutely loved it. So I bought some more of the stuff and enjoyed it. It wasn't as good as the aged one, and even though it's an aromatic, it still was really good aged. And then I also bought some of the flake to try, and initially I didn't like the flake. Not sure why, but initially I didn't like the flake, and I stuck with the mixture. And then for some reason my palate just adjusted and preferred the flake to the mixture. Now I smoke the flake. I don't smoke the mixture anymore. It's very, very nice, Paul. I've been enjoying aromatics recently, but this one is really fantastic. It keeps its flavour pretty much to the bottom of the bowl. It's got a good tobacco-y, spicy retrohale, and obviously the flavouring you get in the mouth. I'm very impressed with it. Very, very impressed with it. And it's readily available, so I assume it is. I think we can still get it here, can't we? I mean, the tin that was sent to me looks like it comes from America, but it's now called Classic Loose Cut, because you can't call it vanilla cream, because somebody might. Some 12-year-old might be enticed. Yeah, it's available here. £16, 12 for 50 grams, I guess. But you can get it in Europe, 100-gram tins. Estival's has it, I'm sure. I think we're done. Yep, that's the end of that bowl, and it's dry, pretty much. It's as dry as you're going to get a bowl, I think. Look at that. That's a good smoke right there. I think I'm going to go for another bowl, actually. Just try it in another pipe. I'm going to try it in the Savinelli Autograph. Great ring grain. So Daniel, when you're packing your tobacco, if you want to pack it light to start with, you just drop it in and then just tap it so it gravity fills. It fills from its own weight. And when it stops, you just give it a little bit of a push. And that's it. Yeah, Tree, somebody did suggest that I try the black vanilla as well. I haven't as yet. If it's anything like this, then really good. Clay, you can't get my email to work? You got to check the spelling of it. It's either lcsbriars@gmail.com, or you can use my regular address of boscopiperuk@gmail.com. You can get it anywhere here in the UK, I think, Paul. But otherwise, if you want to go to Europe, you can go to Estevols, House of Pipes, I think it's called, but search Estevols, Estervals. I did use the Frank method for quite a bit, North Country. It's a good method, but I actually find that it's hit and miss sometimes. You know, if it as you put it in, if it kind of the Frank method works, so you have to get it in as a clump. And sometimes it just collapses as you put it in. So, but I find that the gravity fill works for me very, very well. Hey Guy, Shavua Tov. Well, to be frank, Paul, you're not trying hard enough, are you? Let's be honest. So Daniel asks about cake build-up. Again, I would really refer you to what I said earlier on, Daniel. Don't worry about it. Early on in my pipe smoking, when I bought when I bought an estate pipe, for instance, and it would come with a thick cake in it, or I would watch Matches 860 smoking a pipe with a thick cake in it, I would think to myself, why am I not getting a thick cake on my pipes? To get a thick cake on your pipe, you'd have to be smoking it regularly, pretty much day in, day out. Or you've been smoking for 20 or 30 years, and if you smoke that pipe once or twice a week, you'll have the same effect. But if you're a relatively new smoker, say 3 to 5 years you've been smoking a pipe, and if you're anything like any of the new generation pipe smokers, which I consider myself as one of, you've probably got more than 7, 8 pipes, you've probably got 20 pipes maybe, and your pipes just don't get a chance to do that in that time. You'd have to be smoking for 20 years maybe to get a really, really heavy cake. Yeah, well, Chad, I can understand that. You haven't got a huge rotation of pipes, Chad, have you? Or at least not that you smoke on a regular basis. To be honest, I don't have a huge rotation either. The pipes that I smoke regularly is probably less than 20 pipes. Oh, you definitely shouldn't take it back to wood, Daniel. Definitely, definitely not. If you feel that you need to ream it, the general guidance is that the cake should be about the thickness of a nickel. So you're probably looking at about a millimeter. But you definitely don't want to take it off, because the whole point of building up a cake is that it protects the briar, it protects the bowl, keeps the walls of the pipe getting too hot, and also potentially burnout or cracking. You definitely don't want to ream it back to that extent. "15 pipes is actually a really nice number, Boss Hog. I personally leave the pipes with a naked bowl because I like to break in pipes myself. So the way I make my pipes, I make them in the same way as I like to smoke them. Every pipe maker has their way of doing things, and I know how I enjoy to smoke a pipe and how I like to break in a pipe. If a customer specifically asks for a bowl coating, I'll put a bowl coating in it. I don't have a problem with that. But I think a lot of people like to just break their pipes in themselves from the briar. coating isn't a substitute for cake. Not a substitute, but it's a kickstart, I guess. A solid silver stem. I don't think you want to see that, you'll burn your lips off. Silver is a superconductor of heat. Absolutely, boss hog. Actually, I should really get a pipe from Jason. I haven't got one yet. Plus, it would tarnish as well, Paul, unless you polish it regularly. Could do a trade. That's a good idea if he'd be interested. I don't know. It did look good, that calabash, yeah. I think he's got more mileage in terms of what he does now that he's got a metal lathe. Although in his interview he said that he wouldn't turn bowls with a metal lathe. He just likes turning the wood, and it's quicker to turn the wood on a wood lathe. I could see that. And I really do enjoy turning on the lathe. I don't want to sound repetitive, but this blend is great. Really, really great. Which stuff in London, Paul? You talking about Reading? I haven't heard much about it because I don't use any technology on Saturday, and the Sabbath went out very late tonight. In fact, it's the latest in the year, the latest Sabbath in the year. And the Sabbath finished at 10:38 tonight, which didn't leave me much time. I went out to the shop almost straight away to finish off this. What have I done with it? To finish off this pipe, and then I came up here to do the live. So I haven't really watched the news that much, but I just heard the headlines really. 3 people were stabbed to death in Reading. It's being called a terrorist attack. Daniel, which is the most difficult part of making a pipe? I'm not sure if I've tried Virginia Flake. I do have a tin of it somewhere in my cellar. This one is an estate pipe I bought on eBay, one of the better buys. It's a great pipe. You know, when you buy an estate pipe and you and it comes in without a Latakia flavour in it or a Lakeland flavour, it's just such a relief. And when it smokes well, it's been well broken in. It's just great. This is, it smokes fantastic. This is a sandblasted pipe. You can see the ring grain on it. It's absolutely amazing. One of the silver linings to this whole coronavirus was that the violence in the world, until about 10 days ago, it just seems to have taken a break. But I think that the world is slowly coming out of it, and the violence is resurfacing. Crime and general crime and violence. Sorry, Daniel, I was in the middle of talking to you about the hardest part of making a pipe. There's nothing physically hard about making a pipe. It's about all the planets aligning. You know, every aspect of it, for it to be a great pipe, it just needs to align. So when you're, the first sort of teeth gritting moment is getting the drill right and make sure that the draft hole emerges and meets the base of the chamber correctly. Once you get past that stage and you're happy with the drilling, then it's about the shaping and the sanding and making sure that you don't muck up the junction between the shank and the stem. That's one of the areas which I always worry about, which I'm really careful with, and I'm forever taping it up to protect it. That's very possible, Chad. It's very possible, though. I think that if there were any serious crimes, you know, they would have been reported. But I think the world's just emerging from coronavirus and really just going mad at the moment. It's a good question, Daniel. Somebody asked that, left a comment on the sale video. So, how do I determine a 1-star pipe as opposed to a 2-star pipe? Well, as I've explained before, I think, all of my pipes, generally speaking, will be at least a 1-star. And when I first started making pipes, I didn't grade them at all. Then I decided that I would grade them, and because I think one of the questions somebody asked was, how do you determine the price of your pipes? And my prices range from, they could be more or less, but on average they range between 120, 140 pounds to around 180 to 200 pounds. And there's quite a difference there. So I figured that the best way to do that was to grade them. So the base mark is a 1-star. So the pipe has to be drilled right, it has to be shaped right, and it has to basically pass muster. It's got to pass my personal standards of a saleable pipe. So any pipe that does that will get a 1-star. If it doesn't, I'll either smoke it myself, or I will sell it as a seconds and be clear about what the issues are with the pipe. Any pipe which I feel has worked out exceptionally well, whether it be the shaping, whether it be the quality of the briar, the cleanliness of the briar, or whether it be the grain, but a pipe which I feel has significantly exceeded my baseline, gets marked with a 2-star. And in terms of a 3-star and beyond, I've set that in my imagination. I don't know what that's going to be. I'm still waiting for that to happen. And when it happens, I guess I'll know. But I'm kind of super critical with myself. And I think that to jump to a 3-star, it would have to be really something very, very exceptional. And that could well be when I get to a point when I spend more money on the briar. As it is, I spend, good money on the briar. It's expensive. And I've recently I've gone up a grade in my briar, and I'm spending almost double what I was spending for the last year or so. So the last, say, maybe 20 blocks that I've bought have been double the price. And I don't know whether it gives me a return, because I'm not really using those blocks yet. I got the blocks in a rotation, so the oldest blocks that I've got get made first. So I've got some blocks from a year ago, and all the blocks that I get are all ready to make. They're all ready to be made. They don't have to sit around and be aged or anything like that. I haven't really decided what this one's going to be yet, but I see no reason why it can't be a 2-star. It really worked out great. I have to give it a little bit more of a detailed inspection, but I think it's definitely a candidate for a 2-star. The drilling on it is absolutely spot on. Yeah, no reason why not. Great grain. Paul, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know what African blackwood is. Never come across it. But one thing I have learnt is that there's no substitute for briar in terms of wood. And you know how I know that? Because that's what's been used for the last 100, 200 years. And the best pipe makers in the world use briar. The stars will be for any finish at all. It could be smooth, could be rusticated. I don't know if a rusticated would ever be a 2-star. I don't know, because I haven't done a rusticated pipe for a while. The briar that I've been using has been that good that I just could not bring myself to rusticate it and obliterate some great grain. It just didn't make sense to do that. I always I often set out to make a rusticated pipe. When I get into it, I see the quality of the grain and I just can't bring myself to do it. Even this pipe here, I kind of hummed and hawed before I sent it for sandblasting, because the grain on this one was great. You could see the grain, the way you can see that grain going out there. But I could also see the potential in terms of sandblast, so I figured that I would try and get the best of both worlds, give it a light stain so the grain can come through, and also get a sandblast. I think this tobacco tasted nicer in the Ascorti, funnily enough. Either that or I've just become acclimated to it. Or acclimated. When I finish the live, I'll probably decide if this is going to be a 1 or 2-star, and I'll do a short video and upload that if I decide to sell it. I probably will end up selling it simply because it's what I'm here for. So it would be a real treat to keep this one. But it's really worked out very, very well. The shaping, the proportions, very happy with it. I've got a few of them on the go, Josh. 3, I think, which are either selling or, well, people saying that they want them. So probably 3 of them have hopefully gone so far. The other sandblast is one of them. Hasn't sold as yet, but I'm in talks with somebody who's actually wanting a couple of pipes. But he wants me to make an additional stem for one of the ones he's interested. But certainly 133, which is the sandblasted one, is somebody's looking at it. But I don't reserve, so it's first come, first serve. Because people change their mind, and I don't want to lose the business. If somebody wants it, I'll sell it. It's the first person who pays for it gets it. Any of my pipes, it's first come, first serve. So technically that sandblast is still available, Andrew. And if you want it, we can talk. We can do something better for you if you want it, seeing as it's you. Why don't I use softy bits, Daniel? I just don't like them. When I first started smoking pipes, I did use them. I don't like them, number one. It just makes the whole biting area too thick. And number two, I think it's a disservice to the people who made the pipe. Maybe with a factory pipe, not so much, but an artisan pipe, a lot of work has gone into shaping that bit and covering it over with a huge, great whacking bit of rubber. To me, is just that's my personal thing. Everybody has their own way of doing things, but to me, it's just no point buying an artisan pipe if you're going to just cover over one of the most crucial parts of a pipe in terms of enjoyment, and whether you're going to stick with that pipe and whether you're going to pick that pipe out of the rack. You may not even realize that's the reason, but a pipe that smokes well and that's comfortable in your mouth, you'll pick for, even subconsciously. Yeah, definitely, Paul. That is the reason why many people still do that. They don't want to mark their stems, and that was one of the reasons why I used them in the past, because I had always an eye to, if a pipe wasn't for me, that I wanted to resell it. But nowadays, I just don't do it. If I wanted to resell a pipe, I'll polish the stem. And yes, your stem could lose a little bit of definition when you polish it, but I'd much rather enjoy the pipe. Yeah, Andrew, 100%. That's where I'm at. I took them off a long time ago. I did try heat shrink for a while, which, to be honest, if you're OCD about it, then heat shrink really is the way to go, because it adds really a negligible amount of thickness to the stem, but you still protect it, and that would be the way to go if you had to do it. But I don't even do that anymore. Daniel, definitely. I mean, you're holding on to more. And obviously you're biting down into something softer, so it's easier on your teeth. But for me, if you imagine, you look at this bit, this is a very comfortable bit. Imagine putting a softer bit on it, it's going to add probably the thickness of that bite zone again. So you're going to have another millimeter or two on each side, and that's going to double the thickness of that in your mouth. If you imagine, if you clench a pipe for any length of time, you're holding your jaw joint right at the top of at the back, where it joins, just under your ear. Where that joint is, you're holding it in an unnatural position. You add another thickness to it, you're holding your jaw open even more. And to me, that's just not good. Hey Mike, how you doing? Hope all is well in Canadian land. All right, see you, Daniel. Hope all is well. Regards to your dad. So in case anybody missed it, having my first smoke of McBaron's Vanilla Cream, and it's very good. Very, very good. Even for somebody who officially doesn't smoke aromatics, it's good. It hasn't been sold yet, Josh. Josh, I can't really, you've been good to me, so I'm not going to push you into it. I'm not going to entice you. But I'll definitely give you a deal on it if you do want it. Peterson Flake. Oh, you mean the Dunhill Flake type thing? Yeah. I've got a jar of Dunhill Flake, but I'm not really feeling it. Sometimes you get a batch which isn't great, but I've not been enjoying the Dunhill Flake recently. Sometimes, you get a blend where a particular tin doesn't taste good, and you end up thinking, oh, I've gone off that blend. But sometimes it's just that tin. You open up another tin and it's great. So I might just have to do that. Very happy with it, Mike. I've given it a very light stain, let a bit of the grain come through, and just finished it with shellac. I've got a few tins of the original Dunhill as well. Yeah, it's really good, Mike. Got a nice grain on it. I've got a few tins of early Elizabethan. I've got some early, I think 2011 Navy rolls, which I'm looking forward to cracking open at some point. But I've really been enjoying the tobaccos that I've got open, especially these aromatics more recently. Really been good. I really surprised myself. But I'm enjoying the aromatics. The Blend 131 from Solani is great. This tobacco is great. I definitely enjoyed it more in the Ascorti, the first bowl I had earlier. But it's good in this pipe as well. I've been enjoying the gooseneck as well recently, this one. You remember I had this one with a longer stem. I made a shorter stem, and I actually revisited it and sanded this area down again, and it's now very super comfortable. Yes, shellac is used for lots of different things. It's used for your jelly beans as well, to give you a nice shiny finish on jelly beans. Wood dog's bed. I like that. I've got San Sepulchro sitting in a jar. I will revisit it at some point. No, I won't be using nail polish shellac on my pipes, that's for sure. trying to find that jar of San Sepolcro, but I don't know what I've done with it. The St James's Woods is 2013, so about 7 years, and it's very rich. Will carnauba wax bring out the colour on a revamped pipe? If the pipe has been revamped, then the wax will just give it a nice sheen. I don't think it's going to add anything to the colour, no. What I've found in my particular pipe making journey is that if you sand a pipe right, if you get the right finish on the pipe, then the carnauba wax will just give it a nice sheen, but it wears off after a while, especially when you're handling it. If you're smoking it regularly, the carnauba wax will wear off. But if it's sanded well, then the pipe will still feel very, very smooth, and it will look good even without the wax. If you have a pipe which has been sanded, say, to a 320 grit, something like that, even 400, when the carnauba wax wears off, the pipe won't look as good. I find 400 is okay, but I take mine a little bit further to 600. Some of the artisans go up to crazy numbers, but 600 is the way I finish. The process that I use on my smooth pipes is that I go through the sanding grits from 40 all the way up to, so I go to 40, sometimes I start at 60, but 40 or 60, then I go to 80, 120, 240, 320 and 400. So I'll go up to 400, then I'll use a composite on a mop, and then I'll sand it with a 600 after that, and then I'll stain it. And usually I find that gives me a very, very nice finish. So the carnauba wax just, it makes it showroom ready, if you like, but it's not going to add a huge amount in the long term. But if you're on a lower grit, then once that carnauba wears off, you might feel that quite matte kind of finish to the wood. Yeah, Andrew, I'll be honest with you, although I didn't use micromesh, I did use sandpaper going up to 1200 and 1500. But I was actually wasting my time because I didn't spend enough time with the lower grits, and that's where it's all the important action takes place. Because any pits, any sort of undulations of the briar, however shallow, will not come out when you jump stages. You need the different heights of the sand grit, the sand particles, in order to really get that smooth finish. If you miss out stages in between, then you're never you might have a smooth finish, but you'll be able to see, when you stain it especially, the stain will find those lines, and it will just not look as neat. North Country, if you want, send me some pictures, and I can certainly offer you any advice that, in my limited experience, that I can offer you. if you want to try just a very, very quick experiment, North Country, is just rub the bowl on your nose where it meets your cheek. You've got a lot of natural oils there. I'm not joking. Just rub the bowl on the junction of your nose and your cheek, backwards and forwards on both sides of your nose, and then rub it with a soft cloth and buff it up, maybe with an old sock, and see how that turns out. There you go. I told you I was becoming an old codger. That's snot. Well, if it smokes great, it's not so low end, is it? Well, it depends if you're that unhappy with the finish, Rick, and if you're handy with it, then go for it. Speaking of ferrules, I actually, in one of my recent deliveries, I got some sterling silver ferrules, so I might be experimenting with that in my next few pipes. Well, I wouldn't go lower than, well, you can go as low as you want, depending on how much work you want to do. But to get the stain off, you don't really need much. You could start as high as 400 to get the stain off, but the sandpaper might clog up a little bit. I would say to start at 320 and see how you get on. Alternatively, start at 400 actually, so that maybe it'll be enough. Start at 400, see if you can get the stain off without too much work. If it comes off okay, then just carry on with the 400 and then restain it. Or maybe do the 400, go up to a 600 if you've got that sandpaper. That will smooth it out nicely. If your problem was that it was dull, dull is not necessarily a bad thing. Dull means it's been well used, and hopefully it's a nicely broken in pipe. But if you want to get the aesthetics back, if you want to give it a boost, then that's what I would do. Start at 400. If it's not enough, go to 320 and progressively go down from there if you're not getting enough of the stain off. But start at 400. If that works, do 400 and then maybe go to 600. But make sure you fully do the 400 and you cover the whole of the pipe well. And then go to 600 and then give it a brush off, make sure there's no dust left on it, and then restain and see how you go. Mike, I saw your email. I I didn't have it on a computer that was logged into your Insider, so I haven't seen the actual. I've got to look at it on this computer here to see the actual full thing on your site. But the hexagon shaped pipe looked great. That Radice. I'm assuming it's not 9mm. I still have to smoke your Briar Blues pipe. I've got a good feeling about that Briar Blues one because it's got a much thicker bowl, and it just feels better. It's maybe wishful thinking on my part. It's a Shape 55. Is yours 9mm, Andrew? See, I worry sometimes. I get a little bit obsessive about the shape of that if it's not perfectly round. But most of that's not round, nowhere near. But you know, I think I tend to worry about things much more. I do like the way they make the slots though. Oh, I see. That one has stayed with Andrew, has it? Good for him. I'm just looking at the pipe and I've just noticed that there's no Radice nomenclature on this. It's just Briar Blues 2019 Radice. There's nothing else on there. What would this have been called, this finish? Oh, it's not the silk cut, is it? Is this the rind? Yeah. Michael Powell. Just found your channel again after months. Birthday's just under 2 months away. Got a Savin Nelly and 3 tins of good stuff. Set to ship once the day comes. Also want to make a puffer fish shaped pipe. Good for you, Michael. Well, if you need any advice, hop on here on a Saturday night and there's loads of people who will be able to help you out. Well, if you've not tried a pipe as yet, the best advice I can give you is don't get impatient and don't get stressed if it doesn't work straight away. It does take a little bit of learning time. There's a bit of a learning curve. When you pack the pipe the first time, don't pack it too tight. Better pack it too loose than too tight, because if you pack it too tight, it'll get very frustrating for you. And don't worry if you have to keep relighting it, that's fine. All right, everybody, coming to the end of the second bowl of this vanilla cream by McBaron. I heartily recommend it. Yes, none of them are 9mm though, Andrew. Obviously Mike doesn't like me. Anywho, I'm going to wish you all a very, very good evening. Thanks everybody for joining. It's been a real pleasure. That mutton chop piper guy. Oh yeah. I understand, Mike. I'm just yanking your chain. So, thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Boris. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Josh. Mutton chop perhaps has a nice computer. No evidence has been forthcoming. Perhaps he has a nice computer. More than likely got more pipes and tobacco. Good night, Paul. Good night, Piper Rick. Good night, Michael Powell. Good night, Boss Hog. Good night, JBN. Wish you better. Speedy recovery. Hope all goes well for you. And do come on and let us know how you're getting on. If you want to contact me direct, I'll be available for you for a chat anytime you want. Drop me an email, lcsbryers@gmail.com, and we can exchange details. Where are you based, by the way? Which part of the world are you in, JBN? California. Okay. Well, when okay, I won't go there. But anyway, wish you well and speedy recovery. Godspeed. But don't hesitate. If you want to just chat, we can chat over WhatsApp or anything like that. More than happy to do that anytime you want. There's my email address, lcsbryers@gmail.com. If you want to get in touch, please do. And we can exchange details. So, everybody, I wish you all a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the rest of it. And hopefully I'll be making a pipe tomorrow. We'll see how the day goes. And I will catch you on the next one. Nighty night.